What's up, everybody? I am Snigenhoff, and today, as part of Build Better, I'm doing a deck tech for Kid Kaiju. Now, let me just preface this right up front. This is not a competitive deck. You're not going to take this, you're not going to win tournaments with it, but it can be very fun, and it is doable to level him up relatively early. So, the point of this build is to level Kid Kaiju as early as possible. And the best way to do that is to have Tim Boobah with no wounds on him, and Googum with no wounds on him out at the end of your second turn, so that you can then use those two along with a creature in the graveyard, which should be Kid Kaiju power up, a creature from your discard, a creature from your location row, and a creature from your hand to level up into the 9/9 with flight and range. So let's go over the cards real quick. First of all, for Tim, easy peasy. Even if basically any monsters deck probably running Tim. For Googum, this is the secret sauce of the deck. Because Googum has 2 wounds, it makes leveling a whole lot easier. I've seen people running like creature from the Black Bog in this slot, other stuff like that. But the problem is, if they stun the creature from the Black Bog, you're still out of luck. If they've got Thor, if they've got other things, because Googum has 2 wounds, even if they stun him, as long as it's not lethal or they don't have it extinguish, you'll still be able to use him to level. Next is Hyvo. He's a solid character in and of himself, and he's got lethal. So he's one of the ones that can give you the keyword on your level 2 Kid Kaiju. But if you have Googum, I recommend Googum as the play over Hyvo on your turn 2. Elsa Bloodstone, also just super, super solid. Also with 2 wounds, so if you whiff on Tim on turn 1, if you're able to play Googum on turn 2, protect him, and then play an Elsa on turn 3, you can have the same sort of idea going in. You've got 2 2-wound characters out that will then be basically guaranteed to survive into your next turn. Scrag is also quite solid, 4/4 with flight and range, and he's the one that gives Kid Kaiju dodge. And he is one of the only characters in the game who can take ranged and dodge away from people, which is also a pretty good ability. Very solid in and of himself after we level, but he's not one of the ones we want to use to level. For Kid Kaiju, you need to run this so that you can put a creature in the graveyard as fast as possible. So you can power up your Kid Kaiju. 2 Pildor. So I'm not running the Aegis in this deck because durable on the Kid Kaiju level 2 just isn't fantastic. I mean, it's still usable, but like its best use is just like they can't Ghost Rider you, you know? And because in this deck you have to set yourself back a turn to level up, especially once we get into these 4, 5, and 6 drops, you need stuff that can swing up. And so Pildor is a 6/3 with range, and he has the added ability of paying the yellow to force your opponent to discard a card, and you draw a card, which again puts you back up cards that you've had to set yourself back just to get to your level 2. 3 Bakara, she gives Kid Kaiju monstrous. She's also a 5/5 that can have the defense of the attackers that are coming into her. She's just fine. She's not my go-to play 5-drop, but giving the Kid Kaiju level 2 monstrous is rather good. Sticking him up front, making people team attack into him, and then stunning back all the team attackers just seems really nice. The 5-drop I prefer to play, however, is the Monstro, who we've got 2 of. He's an 8/8 when he hits the board, another character that can punch above his weight class, right? When you're playing 5s when they're playing 6s, and so having that 8/8 hit the board can really help you even that advantage back out. 2 Slizik, he gives mobile. Mobile's kind of like low-key really good on Kid Kaiju because you can move him to the back, make the range attacks you need to make, then move him back up to the front to protect your dudes. And Slizik can also, once again, put that board a little bit closer back to even, because if you can get that blue ability off with him, stunning both a front row and a back row character at the same time. Fireclaw is just really, really good. 9/7 with Pounce, so he doesn't get struck back when he attacks into exhausted characters, and then he can pay the earth to pull a dude up front and exhaust them. Just really solid, helps round out our late game. And one Fing Fang Foom, not a lot of room in the deck for another one, and hopefully by the time you're getting to that point, this is just kind of wrapping up the game. You don't need to see him to win, and it's just you know, just that nice little, if you see him, it's nice, but it's not really necessary. The plot twists we are running basically every defensive plot twist we can get our hands on, and this is for this reason. So, as I was talking about earlier, turn 1, you play a Tim Boobah. You move them to the back, you leave your Kid Kaiju up front. Even if they stun your Kid Kaiju, don't burn any plot twists. The only time, you just need to keep your Tim Boobah at 2 wounds. That's the most important part. Turn 2, you play your Googum. You play him in the front row. So now you've got Tim and Googum with 2 wounds. Now you don't need to worry about them whatsoever unless they have lethal. Now you spend all of your defensive plot twists this turn on your Kid Kaiju, keeping him alive. Because as long as you do that, and you've met the other requirements of his level up ability, you'll be able to level up. Because unfortunately, the way it's worded, if he is stunned, you can't level up on the next turn. So you have to keep him alive. So we're running 4 flattens. I've actually really liked this in the deck. That's the reason why we're running it mono. It helps take care of like some kind of pesky threats going in. It doesn't do anything against like Black Widows or Icemans or anything, but like even taking a Black Panther down from a 3/2 to a 2/1 makes a lot of difference in keeping people alive. And also it scales well into the late game as well, but it's not the number one reason why it's in the deck. And it can help deal with some pesky Scarlet Witches. Bringing her from 5 butt down to 1 butt so that you can like you can still do everything you need to level, and then like soon after that play a Scrag to fly over and get her or something like that. Helps out a lot. 4 Loyal Soldiers, again, just it's defensive. If you get the perfect round out and you have the Loyal Soldiers in your hand, you play it, all of a sudden you've got 2 3/3s and a 1/5 instead of 2 2s and a 0/4. Makes it a lot more a lot easier to defend your position so that you can get the level up. 4 Shocks, self-explanatory. 4 Fine Covers, self-explanatory. And again, if you're in position to level, you only burn those defensive plot twists, keeping your Kid Kaiju alive. Unless like you've had to like play a Hivo instead of Googum, then use common sense. But 4 Muse, 4 Earths. Mostly this is to power up the Monsters Are My Favorite ability on level 1 Kid Kaiju. With only 8 locations in the deck, I found that in a normal game, I can only expect to really draw 2 of them. That's just the way it seems to go. And a lot of times you use it on turn 1, use it on turn 2, and you may not see another location for the rest of the game. You have to play around that, but we need all this room for all these defensive plot twists so that we can level, because if you don't level, you're just going to lose. So I've kind of touched on it a little bit, but let me just talk about how you play the deck. So, first of all, Tim Boobah is your mulligan condition, your number 1 mulligan condition. If you don't have a Tim Boobah in your hand, you need to throw it back. Number 2, I like to have 2 of the next 3 things in my opening hand. Either you need a Googum, a location, and a Kid Kaiju. And I like to have 2 of those 3 things in my hand to be able to keep it. So if you've got a Googum and a Kid Kaiju, should be fine. If you've got a Googum and a location and a Kid Kaiju, you should come out okay. And even though you need a lot of things to level, I think you can still do it going first. And it makes it a lot easier defensively on the board when you're going first, although going second, you do get to draw more cards so that you can find the stuff. But, so, you've got your Tim, because that was your mulligan condition. You play your Tim on turn 1, move him to the back row, leave your Kid Kaiju up front. If you take a wound, it is fine. Don't worry about it. Take the wound on Kid Kaiju. Don't spend your defensive plot twist keeping him up. If they have a way to come into Tim Boobah, you may need to think about paying your defensive plot twist then. Otherwise, just pass. Turn 2, hopefully you've got the Googum. So you play the Googum out front. Move your Kid Kaiju to the back row. Leave Tim in the back row because you need 1 in each row. If you had the location on turn 1, use Monsters Are My Favorite. Find the things that you need, whether you need a creature to go down in your resource row, you need a Kid Kaiju to power up, or you need a creature out of your hand. Find the thing that you need. If you have the location on turn 2, do it again. Find the things that you need. And then pass. As long as they don't have lethal, you will level up. Turn 3, level up, have fun. That's the way you play this deck. And once you get to level 2, You also have a lot of defensive plot twists in the deck to keep you alive. Now you'll be playing from behind. You'll be dropping 3 drops when they're dropping 4 drops. You'll be dropping 4 drops when they're dropping 5 drops. But the creatures in this deck are designed to be able to punch above their weight class. So yeah, that's kind of the way it goes. Again, this is not a competitive deck. There are some MCs that you basically just lose to. I don't see a way that you're reasonably able to beat Thor unless like they don't draw the Falcon or a blue. Because if they just draw blue, they just stun your Tim Boob off for free and then do it again next turn. You probably basically lose to Storm for the same reason, and you probably basically lose to Black Bolt for the same reason. And you have trouble against really any MC with Flight, although at least they have to be in combat to stun your side characters, so you can play around with your defensive plot twists so that you can keep them alive and hopefully be able to get there. But it is a really fun deck. It is possible to level up at the beginning of turn 3, and if you do, then you can start being at least somewhat competitive. It's still hard because you have to basically Infinity Gauntlet yourself to level up, but you get a 9/9 with Flight and Range, and it's a lot of fun. So thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed this deck tech and the sultry sound of my voice, I also do recordings on my own YouTube channel playing a variety of different games. The link to that will be in the description down below, as well as like this video, subscribe to the guys over here at Build Better, and leave us a comment. Have you tried out Kid Kaiju? Do you enjoy it? What do you think its strengths and weaknesses are? Anyways, once again, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.